day I wake, I make my mind up. I'ma be the one, be the truth, be the way. Yeah. Every day I wake, I make my mind up. Gotta keep my mind on the because they only telling a side of the story. Out here telling lies like they on Maury. Them poor rich kids get their money on phone it. But down here in the hood, yeah, we know Forex. We growing up, yeah. We got the good. Good of them assets, good of my bag. Get rid of cash before the whole market crash. A news flash, just a blast from the past. We gonna smash it. Be prepared to hit the gas, yeah.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, switch the game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher. Yeah. Sharing no haka from Virginia. Yeah.
I know I'm more because I'm blessed. I know I'm more. I pass the test.
We got to see with the true eyes. We need some brand new bright ideas. We got the hearts and some great minds, yeah. If we could all just be sincere.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, switch the game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, switch the game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher, yeah.
This 100-year-old newspaper article out of Houston, Texas, that keeps me grounded when I think about celebrating Juneteenth. 1,000 people were expected for an all-day barbecue in Houston's 5th Ward. My grandfather, Dr. William Drake, was one of the organizers of this event. And here's the part that gets me. They would also have a special dinner set aside for former slaves. And that's why I think about these ancestors on Juneteenth. My great-grandfather, John Taylor, was born in slavery. His father, James Oscar, born in slavery. My great-grandmother's sister, Adeline Kavanaugh, tasted freedom for the first time as a teenager. And my great-great-grandfather, Holly Wilson, was born into slavery. This isn't ancient history. My father knew him and rode horses on his farm in Louisiana.
Well, hello there, Sir Thomas. So tell me, should I continue brandishing my weapon, or should I put it away? Well, that choice is yours, but I can assure you I come in peace. Man to man, face to face, eye to eyes. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't care to engage in pointless conversation with the likes of you. Oh, please, lend me your ear. It'll only take a second. Well, time is of the essence, so make your dialogue as swift as a coursing river. Well, first, let me find the perfect wording. How could I say your sister's pregnant? Ha! Quite ravishing, correct? You're silly if you thought I had no knowledge of my sister bearing a child. But it isn't yours, so spare me your presence. And you're silly if you think that me being a father isn't a possibility. Lies! That's fair, but whether you like it or not, this time I speak truth. I'm going to be a father. Not on my watch. Oh, Thomas, you would slay your sister's baby daddy? Where is your integrity? Quit your lingering and fight! Well then, if there is business to be stood upon, then here I stand.
Traditionally American, certainly doesn't unite people, and it doesn't mark the end of slavery, either in the Emancipation Proclamation or in the 13th Amendment. It doesn't mark the end of anything. It marks the day that the mailman made it to some random part of Texas and told the locals that Lincoln had freed some of the slaves 2.5 years prior. Virtually no one in the country had heard of it until a few years ago when white liberals started pretending that it was a really important day to black people, virtually none of whom had ever heard of it either. And then, because the white people thought the black people really cared about it, everybody started pretending that it was a thing, and now it is a federal holiday. Whatever obscure local tradition Juneteenth is based on has little, if anything, to do with the current holiday, which liberals created 3 years ago and named, crucially, the Juneteenth National Independence Day. Why did they do that? In order to replace the old Independence Day, which is the 4th of July.
Take a mile. I said 10 seconds of the song, you just went ballistic. Oh, come on, nephew, don't do that, man. Now we sit in silence.
Yeah, peace to the party. It's your homeboy back again with the news. Yeah, and I know y'all seen, man. Got another special one. Got Mac in the building again. We got Lee Cummings pulling up. We're going to talk about the Juneteenth really ends slavery in Texas, right? We know about the holiday. Some of us know about the history, but we're going to do a deeper dive, man. I got Mac in the background already. We got Lee Cummings going to pull up here shortly, but we're going to talk about the topic at hand and show you how it all correlates to some other things that you may not have thought about before. All right, so that's what we started with. And we're going to see. Mac, let me know, bro. Let me see what we looking like. Hold on. All right. So, yeah, it's all good. Mac, you let me know when you're ready. And we'll get it popping, bro. Let me bring Mac to the stage.
Peace. Morales, what's up, y'all? What up, Monte?
What's the deal, bro?
Oh, man, it's a Tuesday. We trying to, catch up. It's been a couple weeks off on a Sunday, but last time we was here, it was with Lee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
On a Tuesday, actually, the last time we went live. So,
Yeah.
we was, obviously, it's a Q&A day. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody that's been pulling up to the, Tuesday Q&As and bills we've been doing. But Juneteenth is obviously tomorrow. We know it's a popular thing that some people, we're not a monolith, obviously celebrate. It's obviously became a federal holiday. So with that being said, it's not even to throw puns at, as I seen the clip earlier you played of the brother that said he got some ancestors that were slaves and that, So that's to say that everybody can't say that it didn't happen type of thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to knock nobody being non-biased. But obviously, in the whole idea of the Proclamation of Emancipation being tied to Juneteenth, being at Texas, Galveston, I think that we need to look at this a little more deeper. You know what I'm saying, Monte? And shed a light on it. You know what I'm saying? I want to shed some light on some things historically for this day. So, man, whenever you want to read, I'm ready. You know what I'm saying? We can get to it.
All right, you want to start
talk
with
to everybody in the chat.
Yeah, definitely shout out to everybody in the chat and everybody who checked us out on the last video. Y'all showed a lot of love. You know what I'm saying? That's why we do what we do. So what you want to go with that Boston King, Mac?
Yeah, let's give a shout out to the Boston Celtics real quick, though. You know what I'm talking about?
Say less, say less. Hold
I
on.
want to shout out the Boston Celtics. They won the championship. Last time I was on here, matter of fact, I remember at the end of the show we were talking about Kyrie. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I went with Kyrie. I did go with Kyrie.
We go.
Gotta
But the
stand up
basketball
on
mind showed us what it was. You know what I'm
Hey,
saying?
that's
The better
real.
team won. It just is what
Straight
it
up.
is.
Can't say nothing else. Truth is what it is. Funny enough that, you know, the Celtics winning the championship, and we've been talking about some swarthy Scottish people. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and Scotland is tied to the Celtic culture. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So Iberian people. You know what I mean? But within this link, Oxford, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you know university, you know, shout out to them for supplying us with the source, right? You know, the Boston King, you know what I'm saying? Because they're the kings of the hill right now, right? In the NBA. So this is my shout out to them, right? This is my shout out to the Celtics, you know what I mean? The Boston King, even though Boston is known to be somewhat racist, they say, you know what I mean? Even though some black people there. Shout out to my dog, S. Boston, you know, I know he told me at the time, like, man, some black folk up here. I'm like, yeah, I know there is. We everywhere.
They call it Dorchester.
Yeah. So yeah, shout out to my folks that's in Boston. But y'all know what y'all dealing with as far as being in the Northeast corridor of United States as a you know, things that's going on. Either way. However, though, this person by the name in history is called Boston King. And obviously he's also known as a black loyalist of the American Revolution. So I just wanted to give a little bit about him. I mean, a quick shout out in history, you know, point out to this, because we're going to get back to the American Revolution after, you know what I mean, with the things we've been talking about with Lee Cummings dealing with this book, you know what I'm saying? And that was the Q&A basically for Lee Cummings and everything. And Juneteenth kind of takes us, as you heard the other man's, I think said it, the white guy you played the video was short of.
Yeah.
He said that the Independence Day originally was tied to the American Revolution.
Right.
I don't know if everybody heard that, right? I heard that clear, right? But he said they in 1865 we have a new ideal of an Independence Day. See what I'm saying? Because of the Proclamation of Emancipation.
Right.
So I think that's when people get confused about free people, slave people, and everything. You know what I mean? From what was going on between obviously the American Revolution and 1865. But during this time frame, either way, you know, this guy right here, they say there's a lot of different things that you might hear about him. So don't, you know, I'm reading from their source either way. It says he willingly turned to against their patriot masters and joined the Loyalist army. Many thousands of enslaved took the offer up, risking their lives to their chance for freedom. Boston King, 1760 to 1802, was one of these black loyalists. His autobiography is one of only a handful of accounts of the revolution written by rank and file loyalist soldiers. Born in South Carolina around 1760, King spent his childhood and young adult years working as a house slave and cattle herd on a large farm about 28 miles from the state capital, Charleston, when Loyalist forces sieged Charleston in May 1780. King took his opportunity to escape slavery and enlisted with the British. You know what I'm saying? So that's what that is. And it says, as soldiers in the Loyalist army, former slaves were often given the most dangerous missions. In 1781, King was sent alone to gather reinforcements when his battalion was under siege at Nelson's Ferry. This was a double dangerous mission and gentlemanly code of conduct that prevented prisoners of war from being tortured or summarily executed did not apply so-called runaway slaves. The king was captured and he could expect no mercy. You know what I'm saying? So again, this is some information about, you know, obviously the black loyalists during the revolution time frame, siding with the British. Obviously, some of these folk would be later considered Confederate. You know what I'm saying? And it's, you know, funny he'd say out of Carolina, but obviously maybe because he's in the area of Boston, Massachusetts during the time frame of the American Revolution, that they're calling him the Boston King. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, freedman was a British word. It says, once the family had settled in Nova Scotia, King was ordained as a Methodist minister and began to preach the gospel. Here he became interested in working as a missionary in Africa. His thoughts about the wretched condition of a poor creatures who had never heard the name of God or of Christ may seem surprising when we consider that his parents were both African, but they were reflective of common evangelical attitudes about non-Europeans, and especially those of non-Abrahamic faiths. Boston King into some stuff, huh? It
Oh
says
yeah.
King had other good reason for writing. Excuse me, for I was writing. My eyes messing with me. Wanting to go to Africa, loyalist refugees, both black and white, it says, had been relocated to Nova Scotia at the end of the war, rapidly increasing the local population. Many white loyalists had themselves owned slaves in America. Now in Canada, they were in competition for work and business. Scarcity of employment, food, and even natural resources combined with undoubted racial prejudice from the white migrants made life very difficult for the black loyalists in Nova Scotia. You know what I mean? And it says, funny enough, we're almost done with this guy right here, but it says a similar situation had developed in London where many more black loyalists had chosen to settle after the war. Work was scarce enough, but some loyalists, like Billy Waters, had been wounded in the line of duty and could not now get regular employment. Waters was only able to survive because he was a talented musician and became well known as a busker, playing his fiddle on the streets of London. For many of London's 18th century black migrant population, the prospect of starting again in Africa was an attractive one. You hear that, mother?
Yeah.
No. You see that next paragraph, right? We're almost here. All this is interesting because of what's going on after black loyalty and how we see people going and making their way to West Africa.
Right.
They got their chance when British established a viable colony for free slaves in Sierra Leone, West Africa. In 1791, Boston and Violet set sail for Nova Scotia for a new colony. Hold on one second. That's Lee hit me. Hold on real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Yeah, so I'm gonna explain kind of where we at. So for those of y'all tuning in, what's going on? This is laying the landscape of some black Europeans in the 13 colonies, the black loyalists, right? So you got to understand when the Revolutionary War happened, you had some obviously people from all different walks of life, because it wasn't just white people here, it was majority black people, right? But within these 13 colonies, when this American Revolution took place, some people, they took sides, right? You had folks who wanted to go with the American side. You had folks that were still loyal to Great Britain. The ones that was loyal to Great Britain, obviously, it was rough for them to stay here after Great Britain lost, because now you with all the people we basically traded on. Some of these folks was black Europeans. So they was the ones who was like, man, we can't go back to Europe. So now, if we do, we going to be put in the poor class. So we might as well go to Africa. This how these African establishments started, bro.
That's how it worked out. You know what I'm saying? He wanted a few. You know what I'm saying? Not few, a lot of people, technically. You know, and just by the way, y'all, Lisa, he's running a little late. He on black people time. That's the loose. It's cool because we got all this information to kind of cover anyway, so we give him more time. So with that being said, though, obviously in 1794, King migrated again. This time to Britain, where he trained at Kingswood School near Bristol, that I might be better qualified to teach the natives. He continued to preach while he was in Britain, and his experience with other Methodists there helped him to overcome his distrust of white people. He studied at Kingswood for 2 years and wrote his autobiography before returning to Sierra Leone in 1796. The memoirs of the life of Boston King were published in installments in the Methodist magazine in 1798.
You know what else is coming out around then
memoir
too, right?
Here. That's a Swarthy memoir. You heard? Yeah, go ahead.
And them boys, so Equiano, what was his name? Cubano. Everybody who had in a story of slavery dealing with Africa or any stories, it always was the memoirs of such and such and some tale like name behind it. You know what I'm saying? And it always was tied to the church. Abolitionist movement. You get what I'm saying? The abolitionist movement was tied to these autobiographies of slavery and how slavery is so bad. So we're gonna make sure we paint this picture that when we go further down the Juneteenth rabbit hole, you gonna really see what's up.
Yeah, it's gonna get deep. You hear me? And I just want people to know that we ain't capping. I mean, you reading it. This is Oxford's account of the Boston King. You hear me? So again, shout out to the Celtics though for winning the championship. We can move on though. Anybody interested, go tap in and check that out.
I'm gonna put that in the chat,
Boston
man.
King.
We can start doing that real quick. I'm gonna put that link in the chat for anybody who wanna go further into that. All right, so yeah, we'll be going to the foreign affairs.
Yes, sir. We can get into it since we got a little time.
All right, hold on. It's loading up. All right, here we go.
So Abraham, you know what I'm talking about? Is this the what up, Imhotep? Hey, is this the one we want to put
Peace,
first?
Trail.
What up, Trail?
Oh, you want to go to? You want me to do King Cotton?
No, well, no. We need to give him this. This is in alignment with the Juneteenth, and need the politics in mind since we have time.
Yeah. Okay.
But I wanted to first. Can we first, before we get to Abraham? No, you're right. The next link got the one before, right? It's gonna go backwards like we thought. In my mind, going right? Yeah. It's this one, and then the next one's with the lawyer. Him when he was a lawyer. I'm trying
before
to
he was the president.
Right.
Yeah. That's the next one. But
All
I got
right,
something to hit on this one too. So we can start with this one, bro. We can start with this one.
All right, you can make it a little bit bigger for me though.
Oh yeah, my bad.
Ain't no pressure. Let me get my eyes right. I don't know. It's me.
Nah, it's fine. I ain't blow it up. All right, what about now?
Yeah, something with my cataract. I had to get it right. Yeah. All right, so then here we go. A key part of Abraham Lincoln's military strategy rested upon an effective blockade of South's 3,500 miles of shoreline, including a dozen major ports and nearly 200 inlets, bays, and navigable rivers. This one is an almost impossible task for a nation with only a handful of naval ships. By the war's end, however, Lincoln had commissioned about 500 ships with an average of 150 and it is on patrol at one time. These ships capture or destroy approximately 1,500 blockade runners. On the other hand, 5 out of 6 blockade runners evaded capture, enough to allow Britain to argue that is a paper blockade, not recognizable by international law. Most of this cargo, however, was lightweight, luxury items, small munitions, and medicines. On the export side, the Confederacy shipped but a small percentage of its cash earnings, cotton crop abroad during the war, 500,000 bales compared to 10 million bales for the 3 years prior to the start of the Civil War. Now, foreign recognition. You want to go into something real quick before we read anything else?
Yeah. So check this out. We gotta walk this down and make sure we thorough, right? So the paper blockade. It said that they had paper blockades. So as soon as I saw that, I had to go look. You know what I'm saying, and see what that really meant. So I'll read some to y'all. So a blockade is an act of war whereby one party blocks entry to or departure from a defined part of an enemy's territory, most often its coast. Blockades are regulated by international law and custom and require advance warning to neutral states and impartial application. International law regarding blockades. In a memorandum prepared for the London Naval Conference of 1908 and 09, the British government defined a blockade as an act of war carried out by the warships of a belligerent, detailed to prevent access to or departure from a defined part of the enemy's coast. This differs from a so-called Pacific blockade inasmuch as the latter is not strictly an operation of war and cannot rightly be enforced against neutrals. The former may be either military or commercial. A military blockade is undertaken to attain some specific military objective, such as the capture of a naval port. A commercial blockade has no immediate military objective, but is designed to cause the enemy to surrender or come to terms by cutting off all commercial intercourse by sea. A belligerent may, if it can, blockade the whole of the enemy's seaboard, but the mere proclamation of a blockade of the whole or any part of the enemy's coast without anything more is of no legal effect. Some such proclamations were formerly common and were known as paper blockades. A belligerent may not blockade neutral territory unless it is in the actual control or occupation of the enemy, nor may it blockade enemy territory in such a way as to prevent access to neutral territory. So what is this saying? Oh, hold on. This last part, you got to hear this. It says the common law of blockade rests mainly upon principles laid down by Anglo-US prize courts. Hey, Mac, the prize courts are municipal courts. So when you're talking about, for those who understand law, international law, treaties, right? Cesta Cuvée, this conversation going to get real interesting because it's sitting here telling you right now that the prize courts is the ones who enacted the paper blockade. So what they saying was this wasn't a military action. This was a cut off to commerce.
Yeah.
You got exactly. Hold on. Cleaner upper. Fiction courts.
Mm-hmm. See, they looking at it. They trying to figure out something because it's a weird time. You feel me? On international level, what's going on?
So this is how they know we ain't capping. A prize court in international law is a municipal national court in which the legality of captures of goods in vessels at sea and related questions are determined. So what we know about the Cesta Cuvée, right? Vessels at sea, lost at sea from birth, from their mother that was docked at the hospital. Hey, so we got the whole Civil War. Right off the bat, they telling you they didn't have that many ships, bro. How you gonna come and how you gonna block off all the entryways in America when you have a super small navy? Make that make sense. Make that make sense.
Make sense. I don't see it. See this. That's why we're gonna go back to that. You hear me? Hey, go back to that joint. Now go to that next paragraph. That's why we're going. I mean, this article is pretty good about breaking this down. It says foreign recognition and intervention in the war. The issue of the blockade's effectiveness became the major foreign policy question in the first few years of war. The Confederacy confidently expected England to escort Confederate cotton vessels or to send British merchant and warships to southern ports to pick up vitally needed cotton. To hasten this active intervention, the Confederacy informally cut off most cotton exports in 1861. Surprisingly, England took no official action to break the blockade and even tolerated the seizure by the Union of British ships trading with the Confederacy. Nor did England ever officially extend diplomatic recognition to the Confederacy. This is not to say that the failure of England and other European countries officially to support the Confederacy was a foregone conclusion, nor is it to say that no aid was extended from England to the Confederate war effort. Far from it. At several times during the war, both England and France came close to recognition and to intervention. It took all the skill of America's minister to England, Charles Francis Adams, the grandson of President John Adams and the son of President John Quincy Adams, to keep England out of the war. Southern belligerency status. Now, I want y'all to pay attention now. It's going to say, the first crisis occurred when England issued a proclamation of neutrality. which which rested upon the logic of the Union's declared blockade. According to English reasoning, although Lincoln proclaimed the rebels to be insurrectionists and thus not recognizable under international law as a belligerent power engaged in war, his declared blockade was an act of war, which would have to be conducted against a sovereign state. Thus, Lincoln had actually granted belligerency status to the Confederacy and thereby forced foreign powers to do the same. By proclaiming neutrality, England afforded the Confederacy the status of belligerent power. Other European nations followed England's lead. Belligerency status had the Confederacy gave the Confederacy the right, according to the international law signed by European nations after the Crimean War in 1856, to contract loans and to purchase arms from neutral nations. It also allowed England to provide safe harbors for both Union and Confederate warships and merchant vessels to build blockade runners and warships for the Confederacy to formally debate in the Parliament the merits of active intervention. Yeah. So, we're going to slide down a little more. You want to get this next paragraph for me?
Yeah, I got you.
They need all this.
Yeah, definitely, because it was breaking it down. You left off on active intervention?
Yep. That next paragraph right there.
So it said the delicacy of the situation exploded into near battle when two Confederate diplomats, James Mason and John Slidell, were seized by the U.S. Navy from a British ship, the Trent, en route to England. England's Prime Minister, Lord Palmerston, sent Lincoln an ultimatum demanding an apology and the release of Mason and Slidell, and ordered troops to Canada in preparation for war. He also seized all English shipments to the U.S., including a vital supply of saltpeter, the principal ingredient of gunpowder, in which the Union was in desperately low supply. Lincoln had little choice but to release Mason and Slidell, although he avoided a public apology. England, greatly relieved, refused to press the issue. For the remainder of the war, English shipbuilders constructed dozens of lightweight blockade runners for the Confederacy, as well as several warships. The CSS Alabama and Florida sunk 64 American merchant ships in the course of the war. In France, Louis Napoleon sent thousands of French soldiers into Mexico to overthrow the regime of Benito Juarez in hopes of making the nation a French colony. He unofficially supported the Confederacy, but stopped short of formal recognition. In the summer of 1862, a coalition of European nations, Britain, France, Russia, Austria, and Prussia, came close to offering to mediate the war, which would have been tantamount to recognizing Confederate independence. In the end, however, no European nation offered mediation nor extended recognition of the Confederacy. Among the reasons undermining active European intervention were several principal considerations. Economically, there were developments that shifted trade relations to emphasize the North's economic ties with Europe. To begin with, huge cotton exports in 1857 through 1860 had enabled English manufacturers to stockpile inventories that carried them through much of that war. Additionally, new sources of cotton in Egypt and India replaced the southern supply after 1862. Furthermore, the Union became a major consumer of British iron, ships, armaments, and woolen uniforms and blankets, which absorbed the decline in the U.S. market for English cotton textiles. At the same time, crop failures in Western Europe in 1861 and 1862 increased European dependence on American grain and flour, making King corn as powerful as King cotton. Now that's crazy right there. Socially, the open hostility of England's working class to the Confederacy as a nation of aristocrats and slave masters countered their support for the Confederacy by English members of the upper class. Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation served to transform British anti-slavery sentiment into strong political opposition to the Confederacy. On the diplomatic front, there was a delicate balancing act between France and England, as neither side wanted to be the first to recognize Confederate independence, lest the other use it to foment a new alliance with the Union. Bro, it really did hit a lot of things just in these past couple paragraphs.
Yeah, it has. I hope people are catching it.
Yeah,
I hope people are catching this.
You see so this is what we got, just so we clear, right? At this time, the South is booming with crops. During this particular time, cotton was number one. Right. Because tobacco had slowed down a little bit. They had been doing that for hundreds of years already. But this cotton, with the Industrial Revolution they was having in Europe at the time. Now, peep game now. The cotton was supplying this. So they needed the cotton that was mostly produced here at this time. Well, at the same time this war was going on, the so-called war, cotton got cut off basically because the Confederacy was like, nah, y'all playing with us, we ain't sending no more cotton over there to Europe. So they bucked. But at the same time, they started getting other suppliers. Egypt had cotton. They started farming it out and getting it from other places. So it kind of put the South in a bad position because now you ain't had that leverage that you thought you had.
That part.
You see what I'm saying? Then they said they went to King Corn, which was really America's real superpower feeding the world. So you can see the shift in transition, bro. Like, okay, we don't care about you producing all of this off the land no more as far as these textiles. We got our own play for this. We moving on to something new.
Right.
You feel me? It look like that's how the South was starting to lose out. They lost their economic stronghold.
Yep. That's
they
really
cut
what
them out.
It got cut out. And Abraham played a part in that.
Mm-hmm. And you see they can get loans. I saw that part where they said they can get loans, right? So this is how this broke ass union all of a sudden you only had a few little measly ships, and all of a sudden you getting backing in support.
And that's where people are going to have to, that's why this is an important document that I think people need to hear and read for themselves too. This right here though and it says socially. You read this one, right? Is that
I read
last paragraph?
Yeah, hold on.
I think what else is on here? I think this is it. Last paragraph right here. One. So it says all these factors came to play in the series of diplomatic flourishes and sentiment shifts that reflects the battlefield fortunes of Union armies, but nothing was perhaps more consequential than the effect of the Emancipation Proclamation when combined with Lincoln's iron determination to win the war. Once the war became a crusade to destroy slavery, and once the Union Army presented itself as an army of liberation rather than just an army of national self-preservation, it was almost impossible for England to intervene on the side of the Confederacy. British public opinion had become strongly abolitionist, and no government could have taken the other side.
The abolitionist was putting a bad rap on their jacket, like we got to be unbiased about this, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
it's very important. So we're not trying to be insensitive to what people may believe be our story. We just gonna look at what we know to be the facts of the matter, right? How these folks, this was going on in the South, right? And they lose all their power economically all of a sudden. Next thing you know, the stories are coming out about slavery. They doing this, they doing that. Well, whole time, it's from the abolitionists. These are the same
Boston
people.
King and them British loyalists, loyalists like Boston King.
Just like them. And guess what they also doing? They're giving you a hatred for America and they're trying to get you to Africa.
That's what they did.
And this was before any of these Pan-Africans. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, no, but that's where the Pan-Africans root go back.
It came from, exactly.
African Methodist Episcopal Church. The Methodist abolitionist movement that was tied to Union soldiers, also British loyalists who had this idealship of going, you know what I mean? It's interesting, but definitely them black loyalists, we call it black loyalists. You know what I'm saying? Back then at that time. But still, we can keep it moving because see, before Abraham Lincoln was a president now, see, because everything we just read, that's all dealing with the Proclamation of Emancipation dealing with the war. You know what I'm saying? And then how they tied the what we call propaganda machine of that time internationally, and obviously within the heart and strings of certain caste group of people. That's kind of what they call underneath the Negro codes, the black codes, that the abolitionists and then were obviously were understanding that was international as well. You know what I'm saying? So until England obviously declared it, you know what I'm saying, they weren't into it no more. We're gonna get into that. But either way, before he was president, Abraham Lincoln and the man who he refused to be called, and the man who refused to be called a Negro. See, now this guy right here, that Abraham Lincoln, see, so this is obviously before he's the president. I'll give y'all a timeline, you know what I'm saying, on this, just a quick reference point. Slide down real quick, let people get a little bit of this. You see the year?
Yeah.
1855.
Yep.
Okay. 1855. No, you got to keep going down though, because I don't know what that's doing right now. I know there's more to this.
Oh yeah, as long as
there it
what
is.
part you trying to
There
get
it
to?
is, right there, right here. I want to get to the part right here, right there, and then we're gonna keep going. It says in 1855, Joseph Spencer was feuding with his sister's husband, William Dungy. As is often the case with family feuds, things took an ugly turn when Spencer accused his brother-in-law of being a Negro. Even today, some non-U.S. born people consider it an offense to be mistaken for being a Black American, despite the fact that many immigrants also trace their ancestor back to the African continent before the travesty of the slave trade. Many are empathetical, opposed to the idea of being stripped of their ethno-national identity upon arrival in the United States. For them to be recognized as an American Black person is a reference to the loss of ethnic identity and experience with which they refuse or cannot identify. Interesting, huh? All the debates about people dealing with that today, right? Of them being
Yeah.
stripped of their
Being stripped.
of their, not being called Black. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Right.
So this is the spiritual reality today is born out of the legislative reality of yesterday. When Joseph Spencer accused his brother-in-law of being a Negro, it was more than just an insult. In 1855, it believed by local officials an accusation of being called Negro would have resulted in the loss of his marriage, property, and his right to continue to live in the state of Illinois. Just 2 years earlier, the Illinois legislature passed the Black Codes. That means what, 1853? Right?
Yeah.
1853. That means 2 years prior to that case, Illinois passed the Black Codes. I want y'all to keep this timeline in your mind, state, okay? Now, back where I was, just 2 years, okay. The Illinois legislature passed the Black Codes following the directive of 1848 state constitution to pass such laws as will effectively prohibit free persons of color from immigrating to and settling in this state. The legislators not only prohibited free persons of color from immigrating to the state, but continue to build on the precedent established by other states by declaring that 1/4 Negro blood defines a mulatto or makes a man Black. How interesting in that? This is Abraham Lincoln. He's basically defending somebody that's being called a Negro based off of them, being maybe 1/4 of a Negro blood, maybe somewhere along the line at that time, I guess. How'd that work? Either way, that last part actually right here, this part right here is a good part right there, because the code, the Illinois Black Code. It says now we know actually what a Black person is, if he may be the offspring of an African or be the child of a person purely of European extraction with another European whose father or mother was an African. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
You could be basically hit with the black code. That means you could be mixed with European and all that. You know what I'm talking about? They were trying to put people in this.
It didn't matter.
And obviously, this is what gets to Lincoln. It didn't matter, right? So William Dungy had no choice but to respond to what was considered to be slanderous act. His brother-in-law had dubbed him Black Bill, and it was causing him harm. In October 1854, Dungy retained 46-year-old attorney Abraham Lincoln to respond to his brother-in-law libel. In April 1855, Lincoln filed suit against Spencer, and after some legal wrangling, a hearing was set for the following May. Spencer's attorney, Clifton H. Moore, and Lawrence Weldon immediately went out to build their case against Dungy, which was set for October of 1855. They traveled back to Dungy's hometown of Giles County, Tennessee, to depose people who claimed to know his family. Lincoln was prepared with defense that memorialized his superior legal mind, elevated the complexity of the social construct of race, and emphasized the criminalization of being a Negro or Black person in the United States. Despite his client sitting in court with the face of a Black man with a light complexion, Lincoln's argument was simple. Dungy was not a Negro. He was not Black because his ancestral origins were Portuguese descent, not ambiguous, non-Pacific ancestry of being Negro or Black.
Right, which strips that. This is what we got to understand. If they understood this then, how the hell we talking about this now, bro?
Right, people arguing with us about this now. Now, this is Abraham, who just was dealing with foreign affairs, the Confederate, you know what I'm saying, situations, international, and playing on heartstrings. But in 1854, he's dealing with a client, so he already knows about the Black codes. He knows about the, you know what I mean, the laws. He's a lawyer. You know what I'm saying? He knows about the wars, as I said this before, that's going on. We about to talk about that just got passed, going into his time frame of defending this man Dungy in the state of Illinois. You know what I'm saying? And I think we about to get into that next, right? But you know, and obviously the fact that in 1854, if you put a timeline around this in your mind when we have this conversation tonight, think about the fact that the third Seminole War doesn't, they say on paper, doesn't end until 1852. So that means 2 years after the Seminole Negro War, they call it, they have this case that's taking place in Illinois. And it's showing you, and he wins, by the way. He does win. You know what I mean? Basically, I'll sue my client is not a Negro. Thought it's a crime to be a Negro. No crime to be born with Black skin. But my client is not a Negro. His skin may not be as white as ours, but I say he is not a Negro. Though he may be a Moor, Mr. Lincoln interrupted Judge Davis, scarcely able to restrain a smile. He says, "You mean a Moor, not," you see how they emphasize the difference between the M-O-O-R and the M-O-R-E?
And not a surname. Yeah.
And not a surname. Okay. He says, "Well, Your Honor, Moore, not C.H. Moore," replied Mr. Lincoln. Because remember, the guy that actually is pressing the charge against Dungy, one of his attorneys' last name is Moore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's why he's doing that. See, he's playing with him. And he says, you know, hey, his long arm toward the table were Moore, and I say, my client may be a Moor, but he is not a Negro. You know what I mean? So they go through all that. At the end of the day, they win. They talk about mixed blood within all this too. That Portuguese is a nationality.
Yeah.
It's not a status like Black or a Negro, by the way. That many different people of color can be deemed in the status of the one drop rule, with us almost broken down in here for y'all that might not have known about it. So yeah, that's why I really wanted this, Moorish ancestry. It says there too, Black, but he quite possibly has Moorish ancestry by the way of his Portuguese descent that would account for his skin tone, but separate him from the domesticated amalgamation that define those who were still in or who had emerged from the bonds of American captivity. You heard that?
Mm-hmm.
That's at the bottom of the page, y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all didn't see it right there. Yeah. So they Lincoln knows there's a difference between the people in America that would be in the Negro status, and that there's people of dark skin that would be labeled black today, free people of color, who could be depicted as a black person as far as complexion, but were not in the status of a Negro black person in a situation of captivity and what was taking place in American history, especially in the fact that 1852, 1854, the southern states technically are not underneath full control, as we just got through reading about the Confederacy, right? You know what
So
I'm saying? So
let's help them
think about it.
understand it. We'll make it even clearer. So this coming from
Go ahead.
a Louisiana education. You feel me? Break it down. So basically what's being said here, we know that throughout this Civil War, basically what we're telling you is through the research, this was a commercial war through a lot of paperwork, a lot of entities being used within international law in the way in which they was conducting this warfare, right? Within that happening, they needed a way, because remember, if you don't own these lands and control these lands through international law, you can't do certain blockades. You can't do certain acts of war when you're not the controlling entity. So the problem with that is they needed to figure out a way to supersede that. But now if we think about what's going on in and around this time, you had a lot of treaties. A lot of land was being ceded off that the Union came in and was able to capitalize off of to begin the Industrial Revolution. All of a sudden, we got this big black movement pop off and, you know, all the status and all it is. It's not a coincidence. It's basically what we getting at. So putting all of this together, it's pretty clear what was going on. And it had nothing to do with white or black and no slaves from Africa. It was about reestablishing the power base here in America, and the whole farming system. They realized, okay, that ain't the way to go. They wanted to go in a different direction. We want to be able to parse off this land and make different moves. So the South had to get overtaken just because they had too much autonomy if they were just going to continue running off the same system. So that brings us where we at now.
Yeah, so we can keep it moving off of this from Monte. We can keep it moving. I'm trying to buy this man some time. You know, he said he was running late.
For sure.
You know, so just to show something too, a little, like I said, it's a timeline. So it said Illinois in the last link. If I was wrong, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Anybody heard me read it? It say that the annexation of Texas, the Mexican-American War, and the Treaty of Guadalupe and Hidalgo, 1845 to 1848. So out in that area, this is, see, we're in a little small area where we talk about the annexation of Texas as the negotiation of the Oregon Treaty. Some of us might be old enough to know that game they used to call the Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail, yeah.
Dealing with the Oregon Territory, 1846.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So all this right here that they talking about in this context of the west of the Mississippi, being that Oklahoma is one of the 9 states that is included inside of this treaty being brought underneath the jurisdiction of the United States after this situation. So this is during the tenure, and get you the president, U.S. President James K. Polk oversaw the greatest territorial expansion of the United States to date. Polk accomplished this through the annexation of Texas in 1845. The negotiation of the Oregon Treaty with Great Britain in 1846, and the conclusion of the Mexican-American War in 1848, which ended with the signing of the ratification of the Treaty of Guadalupe and Hidalgo in 1848. So what does it come down to? It says the Battle of Veracruz and all that good stuff is all tied to that out there in that area right now. See what I'm saying? But when it comes down following Texas' successful war of independence against Mexico in 1836, President Martin Van Buren refraining from annexing Texas after the Mexicans threatened war. Accordingly, while the United States extended diplomatic recognition to Texas, it took no further action concerning annexation until 1844, when President John Tyler restarted negotiations with the Republic of Texas. His efforts culminated on April 12th in the Treaty of Annexation, an event that caused Mexico to sever diplomatic relations with the United States. Tyler, however, lacked the votes in the Senate to ratify the treaty, and it was defeated by a wide margin in June. Shortly before he left office, Tyler tried again, this time through a joint resolution of both houses of Congress with support of President-elect Polk. Now, all that being said, because this, we want to make sure this is all going on in 18. You see the time frames, 1845. So with that being said, and we just got through saying on the last one, Abraham Lincoln, he's obviously around this time. He sees when this president's in office dealing with those wars, and obviously gets crazy that in this treaty, shout out to Imhotep, who's in the chat, and we brought this up last time he was with us actually, that obviously in the treaty it talks about Indians and Moors out there in this area of the 9 states that Texas is one of the states, California. Matter of fact, I think it kind of, it goes right here. I think it goes into it right here. Can you scroll up a little bit more where it talks about Colorado? I think it covers some of it, where it says, while Mexico did not follow through with this threat to declare war, if the United States annexed Texas, relations between two nations remain tense due to Mexico's disputed border with Texas. According to the Texans, their state included significant portions of what is today New Mexico and Colorado, and the western and southern portions of Texas itself, which they claim extended to the Rio Grande River. The Mexicans, however, argued that the border only extended to the Neuse River north of the Rio Grande. It says on July 1845, Polk, who had been elected on the platform of expansionism, ordered the commander of U.S. Army in Texas, Zachary Taylor, to move his forces in disputed lands that lay between Neuse and the Rio Grande rivers. So, screening on up and everything with all that. What they get into is you just understanding that they can't even tell you who the slaves is or what slaves who and what going on west of the Mississippi, because they don't even have no jurisdiction of that territory going into the 1850s like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So if they not there, where is all the slave owners and the big bad plantations that have all these black folks down here when the union don't even have no access? Who would they have sent down here with what money to establish this?
And by the way, again, in 1845, in 1846, they still, when they signed these treaties, the southern areas of Florida, certain parts of Georgia, certain parts of Alabama, is not underneath their control either. Certain parts of Carolinas is on fire. You feel me? What they call the Negro Wars.
Yep.
So who they got to count to say everybody was slaves if they can't even count dealing with their own war? Are you calling these people belligerent people because they're in a belligerent status of the Confederacy States?
Right.
You know what I mean? But yeah,
it don't make no sense.
Maybe because they all considered to be Negroes coming out of bondage, different from somebody that was in the Union States like William Dungy.
Right, and this is what it came to, because we're back to what it was saying in the beginning, right? They couldn't come and do these blockades because international law said they couldn't do certain things if they weren't in control of the territory. So now, through some of the treaties leading up, they knowing about these situations and trying to acquire this land so they can go and fully cut everything off and take control and introduce these new land masses to the new commerce system that Lincoln helped establish.
So yeah, now with that being said, we can keep this moving.
All right, you good on this one?
I'm good on this one, because if Lee don't get to a certain time, I'm gonna call just text him and tell him next time.
Yes, sir.
Like, because we're gonna make this a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I got you.
So it's just really just another reference to what we just read, to be honest with you. So I just want, I like to double up, you know what I'm saying, sometimes, so people just can see it from different perspectives and everything. But, Andrew Jackson at this time and Martin Van Buren, administrators dealing with that, annexation of statehood and all that kind of stuff going on. So you can go look up the sources yourself, RV Britannica, you know what I mean? So you can go look it up. And all the politics taking place And how it's crazy. It being that this is 1836 Monte. There's a book. Shout out to Opie Miha. He's been covering. What time frame is that book?
Gotta be the same time frame. Talking about Free People of Color, Carter G. Woodson.
Carter G. Woodson. Isn't that the 1830s?
Yeah, gotta be.
Yeah, so in the 1830s, he naming all them people state to state that are Negro heads of the family.
Yep.
Right? And all this stuff going on. But everybody slaves?
I mean,
Think
and
about
then
what's
we
going
talking
on.
1830s. So same time, that's the Dancing Rabbit Treaty.
Right.
What, 6 years before this? So 6 years before this, they just settled all of this land, Mississippi, Alabama, some of what's now Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? And now all of these people became citizens.
Free people of color, though.
Free people of color
Negroes.
first, and then citizens later after the Civil War.
Right.
All right. These same people is the ones they saying are slaves. Yeah. Because you can call your citizens whatever you want to call.
That part. But, in the manner of this right here, though, I just want to show another choice. We can keep it moving. It's the same, we just got to really kind of covering the annexation of Texas and how it's going to be tied to the Treaty of Hidalgo. You know what I mean? How that all is kind of correlated. And then how,
It was good here?
Yeah, we good. Just anybody, anybody got anything to say just in case, you know what I mean? Appreciate y'all patience and you sitting with us tonight, even though I know we scheduled it to have a Q&A with Lee Cummings involved with this, because we really want to get back to that 1775 as we walk it back
to the deeper
from the
story.
Juneteenth. You know what I mean? Because
so let's break it down to him, tell him what the play was, the synopsis of what we were trying to do is, you know what I'm saying? Explain that to him, bro.
Well, being that we've been doing this thing with Lee and obviously the series that he put out, we want to kind of make sure people understand, especially we've been going over this one a lot, and obviously the memoirs of the, the Swarthy memoirs. And it's obviously covering the 1775 to 1783. So obviously, when we first started off, I gave a shout out to the Boston Kings, you know what I mean? But the Boston King guy, you know what I mean, he's in that time frame of the American Revolution. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of gives people just a ideal, you know what I mean, of these people and what Lee's showing that they who are going, you know what I'm saying, back to London and Britain, and then they're part of the abolitionist situation that's trying to set up shop and what Boston and them were doing and others were doing with Sierra Leone, which was a British situation. You know what I mean? That's who was setting that up. You feel me? So that's why people got to look at the root of where and who's behind setting up that colony. You know what I'm saying? Coming out of the American Revolution. You see what I'm saying? And the fact that they aren't going back, they're going back over there, but they know when they go back to Britain and London, when the
ain't nothing for them.
Ain't nothing for them like that, though. They're going to be in second class positions. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So they're looking to go to Africa where they feel they're going to get the most autonomy.
Because they looking at it like
that's what they're doing.
They look at it like the same thing that was done in America. They can go be the founders of it in Africa.
In Africa, right? Yeah,
this is their mind state. You feel me? This is what they think.
That's how it sounded to me, for real though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at everything and
we missed the first place.
You know what I mean? It's like, hold on, wait a second, man. These people done came over here and okay, we done lost this side. If we can't go with this no more, this ain't gonna work. And man, we ain't trying to go rock with them people with the union.
Yeah.
We just got through talking about dealing with this whole, you know what I mean? And there's people that stayed in America who didn't want to go. Oh, who are they being called? Maybe the Confederate, right? Because the Confederate are still doing business with England. We just read it. You feel me? They still doing business with the France.
They paying all the bread. They the biggest customer, basically.
Exactly. So when we're looking at the international laws and things that's taking place that people ain't paying attention to, because most of our folk gridlock, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things going on. But you got to look at it from a broader view. You hear me? That's all. But either way, the Civil War though tied to the black codes. You know what I mean? So it is because before it being the Illinois state, is obviously was, they say 1848 going forward, just for y'all get a timeline. tied to the black code being implemented state by state, and how we obviously know the black codes in the Americas goes back to the French 1685, easily just with the term the war codes, and then obviously Virginia 1723. But then obviously later on, even after the American Revolution, even though you got Negro heads of the states, but at the same time, the black codes are things that could be implemented and things like that tied to these things. So here we go. Black codes in the United States, any numerous laws enacted in the states of a former Confederacy after the American Civil War. In 1865 and 1866, designed to replace the social controls of slavery that had been removed by the Emancipation Proclamation, wink, wink, and the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, and to assure continuance of white supremacy. The black codes had their roots in the slave code that had formerly been in effect. The general philosophy supporting the institution of chattel slavery in America was based on the concept that enslaved were property, not persons, and that the law must protect and not only the property, but also the property owner from the danger of violence. Slave rebellions were not unknown, and the possibility of uprisings was a constant source of anxiety in colonies and then states with large enslavement populations. In Virginia during 1780 to 1864, which is right before the Civil War, 1,418 enslaved people were convicted of crimes. 91 of these convictions were of insurrection, and 346, they say, was of murder. And the enslaved also ran away. It says that the enslaved also ran away. That's a whole other number, right? It says in the British possession in the New World, the settlers were free to promulgate any regulations they saw fit to govern their labor supply. As early as 17th century, a set of rules was in effect in Virginia and elsewhere, but the codes were constantly being altered to adapt to new needs, and they varied from one colony and later one state to another. So every state got their different kind of twist on the code. You hear me?
Yeah, they
how
know
they
federal
deal with people.
on it.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not a federal thing. It's state to state, and every state it got their variant of it. You know what I'm saying? And how they deal with it, based like being it as a code, right? They are altering and updating. However, I wanted that code applied to also like how now you have to be, if you consider black, they every 25 years they got to vote for you to vote. Is that a black code move or something? Anyways, all slave codes, however, had certain provisions in common, and all of them, the color line was firmly drawn. Any amount of Negro blood established the race of a person, whether enslaved or free. As Negro, the status of the offspring followed that of the mother. So the child of a free father and an enslaved mother was enslaved. The enslaved had few legal rights in court. Their testimony was inadmissible in any litigation involving whites. They could make no contract, nor could they own property. Even if attacked, they could not strike a white person. There were numerous restrictions to enforce social control. The enslaved could not could not be away from their owner's premise without permissions. They could not assemble unless a white person was present. They could not own firearms. They could not be taught to read or write or transmit or possess inflammatory literature. They were not permitted to marry. Well, it's a lot going on with them certain codes in them certain states, ain't it, huh?
Oh yeah.
Even though, it's like this, it's like the loopholes of society at that time is very interesting, huh? Being as free people, dealing with this and how they're living in the circumstances of this, you know what I mean?
Yep.
I guess that's why there was so much segregation going on, right? Like, why would you live around white people if you can't even deal with them like that, huh?
Correct.
You were trying to segregate yourself so you would not be hit with the black codes.
Which made sense because think about it. They trying to expand, right? Expansion. So they wanted black people to be congregated in a similar area. And this same area was the one robbed of all his wealth. The South, most of all what other people would call foundational Black Americans, right? If your lineage is from here, you ain't just got here a generation or two ago. Your people got some type of tie to the South more often than not. It's just, it is what it is. But this is where once all the wealth resided and then it was stripped away. That ain't by no coincidence.
Right. Now imagine the dude that's Portuguese, right? That we just got to talking about.
Yep.
Being misconstrued for a Negro in the wrong state. Feel me?
Yep,
he went from being Portuguese in Illinois to being a Negro in Carolina. Feel me? Oh, you jaywalk.
Got him.
Huh? Yeah, that part. So, it's loopholes. You know how they do. The Black Codes enacted immediately after the American Civil War, through varying from state to state, were all intended to secure a steady supply of cheap labor, and all continued to assume the inferiority of freed slaves. There were vagrancy laws that declared a Black to be a vagrant if unemployed and without permanent residence. A person so defined could be arrested, fined, and bound out for a term of labor if unable to pay the fine. Apprentice laws provided for the hiring out of orphans and other young dependents to whites who often turned out to be their former owners. Some states limited the type of property Blacks could own, and in others, Blacks were excluded from certain businesses or from the skilled trades. Formerly enslaved were forbidden to carry firearms or testify in court, except in cases concerning other Blacks. Legal marriage between Blacks was provided for, but interracial marriages was prohibited. The Black Codes. I mean, this is what we could say consistently is what we've been facing all the way up from the time of European colonization, before the American Revolution, after the American Revolution, after the Civil War, going into the Civil Rights era. That's something that's consistent. The Black Code.
Yeah, it is. Just evolving.
You gotta get to be real with about that part. You feel me? I don't know anybody caught that. You hear me? Like, that's something we all can be consistent about. You know what I'm saying?
That boy got a green sent something. Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up.
Gotta look at all that. And a lot of people being disenfranchised, you know what I mean? As the European, you heard guy we give you an example of that he called Portuguese that Abraham Lincoln was dealing with, to indigenous people who obviously now are in these territories that now are being called free people of color, but will be deemed a Negro, obviously based off of certain situations, and they're going to be obviously treated and hit with the Black Codes. And then obviously the person that we I'm
gonna read this one that got a green
like
sent over.
Oh, for sure. Go ahead.
So this Black Codes one, right? It says, soon after the Civil War, Southern states governed by presidential reconstruction from 1865 to 67 adopted racially discriminatory laws called Black Codes to maintain close control over the newly freed slaves, thereby retaining as much of the elements of slavery as possible. North Carolina's Black Code was arguably not as stringent as those of states with larger Black populations, but that would have made little practical difference to the state's newly emancipated Black citizens, who were refused most privileges of citizenship. Approved in 1866 after a vigorous debate in the General Assembly, the North Carolina Code, actually a series of laws, denied Blacks the right to vote, serve on juries, and testify against whites in court, provided for the apprenticing of young Blacks to their former owners, established capital punishment for Blacks convicted of raping white women, attempted to restrict their movement into and out of the state, and prohibited them from owning or carrying firearms or other weapons unless they obtained a license 1 year before the purchase. The Black Code also prohibited interracial marriages, and it applied the same criminal and civil laws, including those relating to the ownership of property, to the former slaves as to whites. The code was enforced by loosely organized and generally unrestrained county militias. So what people, so this is just another example, right, of one state doing their own thing. But what people got to realize is these codes is what really affected our people. And this is where the slavery And the whole narrative came from, because prior to this, they didn't have the control and the jurisdiction over our people to even have slaves in mass numbers, bro. It's just straight up cap and propaganda. But these black codes and Jim Crow, because Jim Crow is a black code. It's just another name, right? It sounds more racist. You feel me?
Exactly.
This was the plan. This was the plan that they had laid out so that they could redline us, put us in certain areas while they build up the economy off the new immigrants, which was the white people, bro. They was not owning us. They was not goddamn. Yes, bro. They was not owning us in the South. Like, that shit is not true, bro. We just got to cut it out. Not saying people were not enslaved, but this was not to a mass of white people. This was
enslaved is not the same as slave.
Yes.
That needs to be understood. And in chattel slavery is not the same as being indentured or being enslaved.
Correct.
And so the black codes could put you in an enslaved position.
Yep.
But that don't mean that your ancestors originally were slaves. And that needs to don't let them lines get crossed. I think we cross them a lot with the narrative that's being given to us through a white supremacy narrative on a totality when the term racist started to get into place, and we obviously became the black race label.
I want them
America.
to see this real big, Mac.
So
they need to understand this part right here. I'm gonna read it slow. North Carolina's black code was arguably not as stringent as those of states with larger black populations, but that would have made little practical difference to the state's newly emancipated black citizens. This is how they got us, bro. We became citizens through these treaties. Whoever didn't go to Oklahoma, your people stayed. They went from free people of color to becoming citizens who now had to go under the jurisdiction of these black codes. This is how they was able to finalize taking the land and pretty much doing the TKO on our people.
Ooh, it was smooth though, boy. They did it though. Boy.
Paperwork. All through paperwork. They conned us into citizenship.
The several states.
Yeah.
And not the union states.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
that was doing their own thing.
That part. So we gonna slide to the next joint then. I think we almost out of there, y'all. Again, because I got questions. I'm gonna save it for later.
Hold on. What was the I think that was the last one you had sent me. Hold on. We got wage slaves, aka citizens. Exactly. To clean her up. And then Mr. Ned say keeping slavery and other. Exactly. It was a lot of games.
As we showed earlier. Yeah, shout out to everybody that's tapped in. As we showed earlier, obviously the Emancipation Proclamation wasn't really about them trying to just free, or Abraham Lincoln trying to free the slaves or black folk in any kind of way with the narrative given to us. It was a political play, though, on the fact that as England, the abolitionist movement was intolerant to slavery. So obviously the narrative of pushing what they're doing could not be it. They had to go with a patriotic way of saying the Union soldiers are here to free you guys from these people down here.
Right.
No. That's not what was happening.
No.
From what we showed you through the
need no freeing
situation.
They needed the South. They needed the resources and the money. So if I'm gonna have a United States, we need these states with all the money and the agriculture. It's pretty simple. So somebody, Bostono Lacono, said where to find more info on a failed colonist named Dennis Royal. That name sound familiar, but off the top of my head, Mac, that name sound familiar to you?
No, I ain't gonna front.
Yeah, shout out to Kofi.
But he's from Boston, though.
Yeah, Bostono. What you know about them Boston Kings? But the name sound like that, all right. But yeah, we'll get with the crew, man. See what we can find out about that. We'll drop something. Appreciate you though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, shoot, if that's the last one that we had,
I think it was a video too about the treaty.
Yeah, we could play that if you want, real quick. You know what I'm saying? See, I mean, it's
real
almost
quick,
time.
yeah. Divine Truth, shout out to you.
He ain't home. Yeah,
It's
appreciate you
all
too.
good. Y'all know what we do. We fluid with it, man. And this whole network game, content creation, things happen, but we gonna always try to do what we can to bring the content. You know, we do this on the move a lot of times, so you know it is what it is.
Yeah, and again, we're trying to walk you back in this series. This was just an actual special edition because it happened to fall the day before Juneteenth, as we
Right.
talk about this Emancipation Proclamation, and we want to walk people back to, you know what I mean, obviously the American Revolutionary time frame with the Black codes we just talked to you about, and obviously that's when Lee would come in because obviously we know that he's saying that, oh, okay, in the 13 colonies when the first intentionally was set up, which is 1605, right?
Yeah.
So that's a long time, and a lot of positions that are taking place from who set up the 13 colonies to who was on the throne of the last crown, dealing with what we call England, going into the American Revolution. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And that's a part of American history. I think our folk who've been hit with the Black codes need to follow based off the regions your people were in, and you can kind of see the narratives being and codes, you know what I mean, depending on where your
Right.
people are, that affected you. You know what I mean? No matter what your genealogy, once that free people of color, free Negro term was applied to you, you know what I mean? Of this swarthy, you must have swarthy ancestors out of them European areas. You might have some West African ancestry in certain regions of North America, right? And then
Yeah.
also too your indigenous side, the three people of color categories they call it. You know what I'm saying?
Show
So
the book again.
yeah, this right here. That's why you need to go ahead and Swarthy Memoirs of the Black American Revolution. You know what I'm saying? They tell you you're afraid if you read this. You see academics afraid that you will read this book. And that's why, and he got the Black codes in it. So it's why people gonna have to understand certain things with this. It's a rationale to the sources with American history. And again, anybody that you know, this Sunday we back though. We took a couple weeks off. We know we told you the 16th we was gonna be live, but we realized it was Father's Day, and we, you know, last time we seen you, like we said, you know, it was like the playoffs is starting and we called it, but it's over now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, this Sunday be back June 23rd, and we will be live. Shout out to God of Green, Super Blaze, Baron P, Firebird, all the party, everybody in the party, the ministry, you already know what it is, social club. And we're gonna take off with the part two. Now I need to say gonna be with us if everything plays out right. And we're gonna go into some conversation with the Bill, some information we got dealing with the Aboriginal story of America. You know what I mean? When you say Aboriginal story of America, that means we got to include all the things involved with it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I mean, because since we talking about codes, I want y'all to remember this tonight. So we ended with the Black code situation. And Monte, you covered this, I think, dealing with the Mississippi joint, Mississippi money joint, the Asiento.
Yeah.
It's going to be tied to this Asiento too. See, there's Black codes, right? And that's where we're going to get it. And there was a war about it too. We're going to talk about it on Sunday. It's the Aboriginal story of America. And it happened here. The Inquisitions took place, etc. So with that being said, Monte, you got the video? You going to play something?
Yeah,
what we doing?
I got it.
We'll give him this real quick. You know what I mean?
Engaged in a war of aggression, engaged in a war of foreign territory, actually occupied a foreign capital. And there's a fairly large movement in the United States to go for an all-Mexico policy and annex all of Mexico and bring it in to the United States. So the compromise position is essentially to take over the northern region of what was the nation of Mexico. As a result of the treaty, the states that get brought into the United States are Texas, New Mexico, parts of Colorado and Utah, all of Arizona, and the state of what will eventually become California. And what really happens as a result of the treaty is that Mexico is essentially lopped in half, and the United States takes the half of Mexico that is the least populated, but provides them with a number of resources based on land for the nation as it's developing. It's pretty clear that the federal government knows there's large coal deposits, copper deposits, a large set of resources that will now be available to the United States.
So yeah, you see that, right? I mean, read through it, but she gave a little brief, you know what I'm talking about? Like, yeah, she gave a synopsis.
Yeah,
and that is that's really what I want people to see, because it's really like, the area, and so that none of that area. If you got people that was out parts of Oklahoma too, was outside of that Mississippi area.
Yep.
Prior to that time frame, with tied to that annexation of Texas and that Treaty of Hidalgo.
Yep.
Yeah, you weren't underneath United States jurisdiction to be a slave in the first place. As a matter of fact, what we remember we had that I know we don't have time, but it was a timeline. Remember, Monte, that I sent you dealing with how it talked about the Indians that most people talk about, a group of Indians, I should say, in Galveston, Texas, and it also talked about particularly how Galveston, Texas was a very large port, a place of trade, dealing with what we talked about earlier, and that place of trade, dealing with Galveston, with indigenous people, other people, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in Galveston, Texas. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, because I didn't get to read it, I'll put it in the chat, and hopefully everybody can take their time and go down the timeline themselves.
Yeah, send it to them. We done provided. We ain't gonna be like the other folks, man. We put our stuff in here, man. Y'all go build on it, bring us back information. This is a community of researchers. It ain't no hierarchy to this. If you really putting the time in, we respect you. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Mac. Hey, Mike Davis say, I told you, Mac. Luka Doncic is defensively challenged. That boy was getting cooked out there by them Boston Kings.
Yeah, he was getting hurt, bro. Mike, dog, you got me. You ain't gonna lie, you said it. I can't front. Hey, he ain't play no defense.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be real. Like, the man, look, man. Hey, shout out to the Browns. I swat that. Hey, some people out there mad because Brown won the MVP and Tatum didn't. Tawny Tatum didn't win the MVP, but Swarthy Brown won the MVP. See, I'm using the scriptures. You heard me? Yeah. You know what I mean? But shout out to both of them though, because they both balled out.
Good team win. That's why
Drew
Holiday
balled out. Drew Holiday, stop playing. That boy,
to clean up he said Galveston a big port, bro. Yes, this is why.
Yes.
This is why the whole Juneteenth, right? They use Galveston for a reason. That's the funny part about it, because they needed to stop what was going on commercially. That had nothing to do with no slaves, man. Them folks ain't had no motion out there. They were doing their own thing in Texas.
Right, they wouldn't send no 2,000 Union soldiers to go try to tell some slaves they free now.
Come on, bro.
You know what I'm saying? That's the bullshit. I'm just gonna keep it real. When you read, I got the source in there. The last thing I put in there actually. So when you go check that source and read the timeline, it lets you know how Galveston's actually being built up. Because we ain't got time to read it all to you live tonight. You know what I mean? But you know what I'm saying? It's there in the context of everything else to be read out when you think about the Galveston's inside what we call Texas and the annexation of Texas. That is a very big part of the annexation, because Galveston was a port, a major port, dealing with that trade system that Abraham Lincoln in foreign affairs and the Confederate money system. You know what I mean? Monte? It's there.
Oh, yeah.
It's there, though.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Miss Steele. Who we got in here? Hadassah. Say hi, Mac.
What's up, Hadassah? What's up? What's up with you?
We got Mike David came back. He said, another thing, I grabbed that book you had on the community tab, America BC. Oh, yeah. Remember that post back?
Yeah.
He said that book got a lot of drop in it.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm glad you paid attention. When that let me know that I'll put some more joints like that up there. Y'all like it like
coming,
that,
bro.
If you can send you some screenshots so y'all go out there and get other books outside of what we do with Lee. You know what I mean? We got a vault of sources. So books, by the way. You know what I mean? We got so many books. So it's like when we get time, you know what I mean, we're going to throw them on the community wall. So especially when we read from some of them and we're using them for the context of what we do on these bills and obviously our show on Sunday.
Hey,
Shout
Max,
out to
speaking of
Monte
that,
3 times a week with the news, you heard?
yeah, hey, we need to tell her we thinking about giving access to our library for all the books and things that we require, because we got a lot of PDF versions of certain books that you don't got to buy. If y'all interested in that, let us know. Tap in the comments on other videos, you know, tap in. We got a version for our Patreon, you know, a free subscriber version. We just try to really build with the community, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we got the free option, you know what I'm saying? We're going to let people get access to some things. We got our Discord set up. It's organized to a point now. I feel a little better about it. You know,
Yeah.
to a certain extent. It was wild. Everything was all over the place. So we were like, this shit is it's crazy for us to even find things in here. You heard me? But if we get it, you know, organized, go to the theautonomousparty.com and obviously you can check us out. We'll hit you back and you can get into the network. Obviously our Telegram, Maroonville. You already know what it is. Tap in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Divine Truth say interested. Miss Stell definitely say she appreciate the resources, building more supplemental for our own library.
Yeah.
Clean her up or recommending a book. Yeah, we got to share this, man. This ain't no individual's information. None of us own this shit, bro. We just researching, doing our due diligence.
And that's what it's about. That's what the party was set up for, autonomously, for us to go come to collectively and gather, you know what I'm saying, information and help our people understand what we all have in common, but also the diversity of you have your own story and your genealogy, especially I think during the pandemic when we started this, you know, party move to do the mix show and we attracted who we attracted. And shout out to the party members at this current time that's been building the foundation all over from, you know, Cali to New York to down here to the islands, you know what I mean? We've touched a lot of people. We appreciate that. And at the same time of doing this information and laying it out, you know, we want people just to know that, you know, your genealogy is important to you. But at the same time, knowing how we all been affected, like the Black Code, is something like reality-wise. And the harsh reality is live life autonomously, right? You got to know what's in your face and what you got to deal with to get to that point. So the Black Codes is something they were all affected by, no matter how you want to slice it in what you say your genealogy is. If you've been labeled, you know, Black in America, Negro. Obama got rid of it, but he didn't repair it or restore it.
Yeah.
For people like Abraham Lincoln, who said in 1854 earlier, when he said, this man is Portuguese and he has Moorish ancestry. He is not a Negro. When we get into that Asiento, I'm going to show you what they mean about why they calling a certain group of people Negroes. You heard me? All right. Okay. Tap in with us this Sunday. That's what I'm going to say. And on that note, I'm going to eat some good food and chill out. You heard me?
Yeah, for sure. And Divine True willing to support. We definitely appreciate it. This stuff can't move without support. You know, like the video, comment, share with your people. If you go before and you want to go beyond that and tap in with the Patreon, obviously we appreciate that too. But just watching and liking is good enough. You know what I'm saying? Comment if you disagree or agree. We ain't a monolith.
Definitely. If you got some information that's going to upgrade us too, we want it. You heard? Don't play. You heard me? Yeah. That's the Luciano Macario. Shout out to my Maroons outside. You heard me? Yeah. Let's get it.
All right. So, Matt, we out of there, huh?
Yeah, I'm out of there. I ain't got nothing else on it.
All right, y'all.
Until Sunday. I got to save the rest for Sunday. You heard me? So,
yeah. Catch us Sunday. You know what it is.
Catch you Sunday.
Service.
Peace.
All right, man. Peace.
Not tonight. I don't wanna fuss and fight. Niggas, the top 5 lister, double S drifter, separate sipping, and you know I came with it if she cute with it.
Do.
Start to feel alone. I just play your voice loud. That I say before things change. Now I read the message you sent, trying to tune out when you say I know you love me, but you should just forget about it.